Scripture for today from the lectionary is coming from the epistle. And the epistle lesson is from 1 Timothy in chapter 6. Of course, there is great gain in godliness combined with contentment. For we brought nothing into the world so that we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with these. But those who want to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And in their eagerness to be rich, some have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many pains. This is the wisdom of God. Well, I think it's pretty clear that I've been culling my books. Obviously, you see them out there. I'm a little disappointed you aren't taking more of them. There used to be a thing at an annual conference where when a pastor retired, he or she could take the books to the annual conference, and there was always a book sale. And that's the way you got rid of your books. And we're looking for something. Oh. Okay. Where was I? Fortunately, with books, our dear friend and former superintendent, Alan Ocampo, has been taking the books to the Philippines for many years. So these books out here, if you don't want them, they're going to the seminary in the Philippines, which is a great thing. I've said so much stuff. I've got antiques from North Carolina. I've got model trains from my father-in-law, boxes of them. All sorts of Christmas stuff, a huge box of ornaments. Dishes, crystal, silver, and pottery. We have too much furniture for a smaller place. And pictures. I don't mean the photographs. I mean pictures you hang on the wall. My dad was a watercolorist. Got a lot of his stuff. My mother-in-law sketched. And then we had pictures from my parents' house, pictures I brought back from Japan and elsewhere, all sorts of pictures, and I don't know what to do with them. Toys, a wooden train set that was one I grew up with. Dinosaurs, Beanie Babies, and two huge, like this big, things of what? Legos. What do you do with them? And on top of all that, 30 years of National Geographic. Do you know how heavy those things are? I scrape them across the floor. I've got doctoral dissertations for my father, my father-in-law, and Paula's uncle. And all the stuff that I spent time purchasing and bringing back to my parents from Japan is suddenly mine. How did that happen? Let me tell you about our dishes. When we were preparing to get married, Paula says, we need to go to, I can't even remember what the store is, we have to register. Register? What's that about? I had no idea. I go to my mother. Mother, what is this about? Oh, you have to do that. That's tradition. Because how will the relatives in North Carolina know what to give you if you don't register? I gave in. So now I have China up in the top thing here, giving me anxiety. I don't know how often we used it, but it wasn't that often. And here's the thing. Aaron does not want any of it. He does not want any of it. And I see Dana shaking her head. It's a generational thing. Yeah. In Fairwood, I tried to organize a system where about big tools that we only use once in a long time, and that everybody has one. Why does everybody have one? It was brought on by me painting a house and going to a neighbor and getting a 30-foot ladder. I don't want to buy that and have it hang out in my house, and I've got that, and I've got the blower, and I've got the pressure washer, and I've got, how many things do I got? They're all in my garage. What if I could share them? It's a great idea. Nobody bought it. It didn't work. The early Christians would not recognize us with all of our stuff. Each house with its own power washer? The early Christians did not acknowledge private property. Do we all know and remember the story of Ananias and Sapphira? Everybody know that story? They inherited some property, but instead of giving it all to Peter and the community, they kept a little bit out for themselves. When they came before Peter, confessed what they had done, they died. Chapter 5, Acts, look it up. And then from the lectionary, we have the letter of Timothy, which is famous for saying, "For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And in their eagerness to be rich, some have wandered away from faith and pierced themselves with many kinds of pain." Do people read the Bible? I mean, the people who say they read it all the time, I never hear them reading this. Do you? There's a great gain in godliness combined with contentment, for we brought nothing into the world so that we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with these. Will we? Are we? Contentment and godliness as guides. Contentment always includes relationships. The opposite of, or extended from contentment, is happiness. That's what we want, right? Happiness is an individual thing. Happiness creates winners and losers. Contentment invites community. My situation, reviewing all that I have and all that I'm going through right now, I've decided to lean a little bit toward minimalism. Everybody know minimalism? Having only that which one deems necessary. Of course, the real catch is what one deems can be different. But having as little as possible, they discourage owning a car, and owning a house. They would probably say, don't go to the Mariners, go to the Aqua Sox. They would probably say, don't eat at McDonald's, I can't believe it's not meat. Don't be buying yachts and all sorts of stuff. Further, the idea is when we have less demand on our time and attention, we have more attention to give to other people and to reflect on ourselves. This is contentment. Some of the benefits, stated benefits of minimalism are the elimination of discontent, reclaiming time, living in the moment, discover one's mission and purpose, contribute beyond ourselves, have more freedom, pursue interest and passion, get rid of excess stuff. Doesn't that sound attractive? The theme of minimalism is less is more. If you have fewer things, you will have fewer things to worry about. I am in the middle of thinking I might buy a house. I'm questioning that right now. Why am I questioning that? Because I think about my parents owning a house, and every quarter there was something wrong with the house. Well, it's not bad. Anybody else have that feeling? Always something to worry about. And then we do stupid things like try and redo the kitchen. With less stuff, we reclaim more time. With more time, we can be more intentional about how we live. If we're not worrying about our car, our house, and the money, we have much more attention and time to do other things that we might want to do, like volunteer at the church. That's what I was. When Paula and I were about to get married, a church woman did the flowers. We went to her house. I walked into her house. She had everything on the walls. There was not an inch that was empty of something on the wall. Everything was like that. I felt queasy. Really. I try and imagine if your walls are like that, is your life like that too? For a lot of us, I think it is. And instead of a wall full of stuff, I'd like to imagine what minimalist art would be like. And over here, I have Gordon giving you an example, there we go, of pictures I think are more minimalist. Photoshop. When you see these, there's usually just one thing to focus on, not so many. The other thing these do is it draws your attention to the space. And the space is where we get time and we get our life back. If we have less, we are more able to focus on contentment and godliness. When our lives are full of stuff, we're going to be anxious. When we are busy filling our lives with accomplishments on our way to wealth and happiness, that's when we become more disconnected from each other and from God. When we have less, we become more attentive and aware and less reactive. When our minds and our lives are like my garage, we are so busy handling our lives that we don't even reflect on them. When we have less, we deal with what we have well and not haphazardly. That includes our family. We become mindful of our children. When we have less, we get out of the habit of wanting more. We begin to value what we have as meaningful and representative of our life. Two stories, probably you've heard before, but I'm going to tell them again anyway. The first story is about a professor who goes to see the Zen master. He wants to learn from the Zen master, and he's there with him for probably 15 minutes, and he's talking and talking and talking and talking, and the Zen master gets out the tea thing, and he starts to pour the tea into the cup, and it goes over the brim, and it's all over the tatami mat, and the professor says, "You've got to stop. There's no room in the cup." The Zen master says, "That's what you're like." Second story, this one is closer to home. Some time ago, a former pastor named Tom Albright came here to preach, and Tom Albright has been active in ministry in Kenya for many years. He told a story about once digging a ditch for a couple days with this young man. And after it was over, he decided he'd take the shirt he had worn during that time, wash it, and give it as a gift to that young man. He did so, and what do you suppose the young man said? "I have a shirt already." Meanwhile, I have so many t-shirts on the floor of my closet, you wouldn't believe it. Every time you go to an annual conference or something, they give you a t-shirt. Most of them are red, which really is bad. Why can't they be orange? Right. Purple, no. I'm sorry, particularly not today. So I started all this by talking about my books. Getting rid of books, first of all, is a practical matter. I can't have that many. If I have all the books I have and I took them into a small apartment, then my wall would look like that woman's wall full of books. I have that many. Yes. I don't know how this works, but I know that by getting rid of my books, it's a spiritual thing. I'm not getting rid of all of them. I keep some that are really important. the ones that I go back to and read again. I'm going to keep those. Books like A Christian Natural Theology Based on the Thought of Alfred North Whitehead. You look at that and say, what? By John Cobb, who eventually was my professor at seminary. I remember the place I started reading that book because it gave my father, it's my father's book. I remember where I was when I started reading that, and my life changed. I will never give away my Bible that I got in 3rd grade. I will never give away my book by Mark Borg, Meeting Jesus Again for the First Time. You have books like this, don't you? And these books become a part of who we are, part of our essence and our spirit. Those are the ones you want to keep. Culling books, getting rid of lots of stuff. Oh, by the way, one of my good friends said to me recently that when you do a yard sale, that's a spiritual thing. It is. A step toward spiritual minimalism, where I want to seek contentment and godliness, not happiness and wealth. Contentment and godliness. Amen.